So does anyone else remember the Great Potter Tangent of Klonoa 2?
There was a lot of things I don't remember of that commentary. The game, I think, being the first and foremost.
Yeah, maybe we should not do games that we have so little to talk about in the future.
Phew!
But anyway, it's time.
That's all I
It's
remember.
time to
Come on,
actually
Scoopy.
do something Harry Potter related, like genuinely Harry Potter related. And
Yeah, this is Lewis's pick.
And we're not starting with the Philosopher's Stone. Why?
because
What's a Philosopher's
I
Stone? I
don't
know it's a Sorcerer's Stone, right?
because I don't like
right.
the movie series much, and I especially don't like the first movie. But like the only highlight of the series, as far as I'm concerned, is movie 3, which, while being kind of a
Can we start the movie?
yeah, sure, why not?
Go on a fucking 3-hour tangent. Okay, so hit play now.
So just so you
All
all
right.
know, we are starting on the Warner Brothers logo.
The Warner Brothers logo, yes. Clouds
Alright.
and the Hedwig theme, all of that. So, all right.
All right. So this will be for counting down the movie on the Warner Brothers logo in 3, 2, 1.
All right. Now I can talk about the Harry Potter movie series because, as it happens, we start out with two mainstays of the Harry Potter movie series. The first is, of course,
Because Warner Brothers couldn't let that cash cow go.
the Warner Brothers logo and the zoom in on the three-dimensional CGI title, which was always a touch that I really liked about the movie series. And the second is this newspaper montage, which
Because you're looking for a montage.
yeah, which this particular director seems to really like, I guess, because this was something. Order of the Phoenix was the first movie, I think, where this director took over the series, and it did a lot of this 3D CGI fading past newspaper stuff too. Hi, Grindelwald. In case you doubted that this was Grindelwald, let's have a newspaper montage about how much Grindelwald sucked back in the day. The New York Ghost. I like that. But
so
yeah.
it's
Just
just
call the Avengers.
oh yeah, complete coincidence that we're doing two period movies right after the other.
Yeah, for a second there, I forgot we were playing or watching Fantastic Beasts, and I thought Red Skull just blasted everybody with the Tesseract guns again.
Yeah, they're both actually World War II era as well. Because this is back in the 1920s, so it's significantly earlier in history, I think. But
Right after heels of World War
yeah,
One.
Grindelwald's reign of terror ended in 1945, I believe.
Anti-wizard sentiment on the rise, so I guess they all just forgot the burn the witch bits.
Oh no, this involves the Second Salem movement. But we'll get into that later. Right now, we need to.
How do we know they're a witch?
Wait, was the Salem witch trials, were they actually witches in the Harry Potter universe? I haven't read
no,
or watched
actually,
Harry
there,
Potter
there
in
is
years.
there is an explanation for that, but it's on Pottermore because they couldn't work it into the movie. It does tie into the backstory of certain characters in this movie, but it's not really relevant to the plot that's going on right now.
Okay.
But I'll talk about that later in the film. Right now, it's time to introduce Newt Scamander, the author of Fantastic
Scruffy
Beasts
hair,
and Where to Find Them.
unkept clothes. Must be a Weasley.
Now, the interesting thing about this movie's story is that both elements of it, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, the textbook, and the wizard Gellert Grindelwald were first mentioned in the first book. Grindelwald didn't really come into the plot until book 7. That was just another instance of Rowling doing some epic, really, really early foreshadowing there.
Yeah, I was gonna say because this whole thing started as a reference book in the Harry Potter series.
Yeah, this was like one of the
It was one of the textbooks.
Yeah. Fantastic
Yeah.
Beasts and Where to Find Them and Quidditch Through the Ages were two little textbooks that were written for charity. They're really little textbooks. They're like really thin. They're fun to read though. They're nice little side things, but they're not books that Rowling directly makes money off of. All of the proceeds go directly to Comic Relief UK. Which, as the book will remind you, has nothing to do with the American organization of the same name.
there's a whatever.
And the textbooks are fun, but this movie has nothing to do with the textbook besides association. It's happening while Newt Scamander is writing that book, and this is a trip he makes to America during that time in the year before it's published.
We're coming to America.
It's also interesting because it has a lot to do with little obscure things like the name of Newt Scamander's wife in the about the author section, or the name of the publisher obscures books. um, it's those little details that Rowling is so good at finding reasons to bring back.
Did you guys see this in theaters?
No, this is actually the
No.
first time I'm watching it. I have not.
Yeah, same here.
I honestly, like, I know everybody and their mother was huge into Harry Potter, like especially in the late '90s, early 2000s when the first handful of books.
It's funny
were
you
coming
say
out.
that because I saw this in theaters with my mother.
Well, don't mistake this for a children's film. This is an adult. This is an adult film in the universe, starring adult characters in adult situations. So
Tweener.
it's more of a
it's a
more of a
tween
teenage
film.
movie, but don't mistake it for a young
Yeah.
adult story because it's more mature than that. And anyway,
Yeah, I
introducing
would give it
Colin
that.
Farrell, who is by far the most charismatic villain in the entire series, and he's not even playing himself. That'll make more sense at the end of the movie.
Well, you did. You mean you didn't like go see McNo-Nose?
Oh, Voldemort? Oh, he's fine. But
The
the thing about Voldemort is that Voldemort is a lot scarier in the books, and I mean, like, his actor Ray Fiennes does a great job at what he does.
I love his
but
beer
it's-
gut in the movies.
it's kind of different from what the books portray Voldemort as. So, you know, your mileage may vary on that. Anyway, yeah, we're getting into it pretty fast. This movie's got a good pacing, but it also spends a lot of time on side plot material until the third act where things sort of come together. It's not the most cohesive story, but it never gets to a point where it doesn't make sense or where anything is completely irrelevant. It's just not as cleanly told. Rowling wrote this herself, and I'm sure there was some advisory work going on with the director and producer and all that, but you can sort of see the seams at times where Rowling's lack of experience as a screenwriter shows
So
through.
she wrote the screenplay.
Yeah,
The bag mix-up.
that's actually what sets this apart in a lot of ways from the other movies, is that it has it's a lot more relevant to the books than it is to the other Harry Potter films. There are, you know, references and tie-ins with details that were either cut out entirely or underplayed in the seventh movie, both parts of it.
Well, I was heading into this. I was pretty dedicated Harry Potter fan growing up in middle school and high school. I read all the books, and I've seen most of the movies. I don't think I've ever seen Half-Blood Prince in theaters. I don't think I did.
Half-Blood Prince
but-
is okay, but it's one of the weaker ones, I think.
There are witches among us. How do we know they're a witch?
I was looking forward to this movie for two reasons. One, I love the 1940s style. Like
It's
I
the
just
20s,
absolutely love
John.
it. Okay, you know what I mean. But fucking trench coats, fedoras, hats, and all that sort of shit.
One thing I won't give this movie, though, the CG is pretty obvious.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm willing to give it more of a pass because, you know, there's already, I mean, pardon the pun, fantastical element about.
Yes, but at the same time, I see
fantastic
other
use.
movies been able to integrate fictional characters.
We can all
or
agree that
stuff.
Jar Jar is the standard.
No.
And may he never be
You,
passed.
you know what I mean, though. Other movies have
Yeah.
done it better, and it's just kind of
Unfortunately, the
jarring as a
Harry
result.
Potter movies have never been the best at CGI, but
No,
they-
that's totally true. Yeah.
yeah.
Go back and watch Sorcerer's Stone. Goddamn.
Even Dobby in Chamber of Secrets, which was kind of
No.
was kind of amazing at the time, doesn't hold a candle to Gollum, like even slightly.
The other thing I was looking forward to going to this movie because I knew what the movie was referencing. It was like, oh, they're talking about that textbook from the earlier stories. Like, okay, why not? And but one thing I actually wanted to see the most was how the magical world outside of Europe. You know what I mean?
Outside of Britain,
Like,
because Britain is the only
outside of
country that we
Britain.
really get
Yeah.
detail on. Yeah.
I wanted to see how other countries, other continents handled the magical realm, specifically the United States, because I find that fascinating.
For this particular movie series, we're actually going to be jumping from country to country with each movie, as I understand it. So America is just the starting point, and it's a good starting point because it's familiar, it's similar enough to Britain, but there's a lot of difference in the way things work. I mean, a lot of difference in attitude and stuff. And, you know, it can almost be seen as a kind of a a commentary on modern political differences between America and Europe,
Through magic.
but it's distanced enough in time that it's more focused on the way things were back in the day. But it's also fascinating because this is the 1920s, but the magical government has a black woman president, and nobody bats an eyelash at this because obviously nobody's gonna give a fuck in the wizarding community. It's all about magic now, you know.
Can you use a wand?
Also,
Yes, okay, you're
in the
right.
1920s, booze is legal for witches and wizards. um, I don't think it
Well,
was at the time in America.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
wizards and
yeah, it
witches
was
was looking
Prohibition.
at Prohibition era is like, hey, you silly fucks.
Oh man.
although the Prohibition era is basically just like the worst, like just a gigantic screw up on the American government's part because everybody drank anyway. It was just a massive waste of time and money.
Anyway, this is one of our main characters. He's a Muggle, or a nomad, as they're called in America. He's a non-magic person, so he's the first major non-magic character.
Gotta say, like the term Muggle more. And that's not nostalgia speaking for the
Oh
record.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
it just rolls off the tongue.
Scamander still calls them Muggles. The No-Maj name is
Yeah.
supposed to be like not charming at all because the attitude that the Americans have toward non-magic people is, well, troubled to say the least.
Hey, okay, hold on. I'm gonna need to hold the phone there. UK wizards are just as much of assholes to the Muggles.
Oh no,
Okay.
no. In America, they're like afraid of discovery to the point where you can't befriend or marry Muggles. Whereas in the UK, the general public attitude is pretty friendly. In fact, they consider Muggles cute a lot of the time. It's just certain radicals in the pureblood families that basically form the KKK of that universe.
Wait till my father hears about this.
Oh, God
You
damn
must
it,
keep
Malfoy.
magic secret from the Muggles, Harry. Why? Why, Professor? We can help them. Because Muggles can eat my ass.
I love those Dumbledore comics.
I was gonna ask if you're referencing something. I was like, I don't remember Dumbledore being that vulgar.
No, there's a series of web comics of just Dumbledore being complete. It's like I wasn't sure about whether or not I should have the students stand here staring at the snake for an hour every day, but then I realized they put up with you, Snape.
Yeah.
I don't think that's incredibly I don't think it's incredibly appropriate, Dumbledore.
It's just like the anti-witchcraft attitude in America is a vital background to why things are so different over here. Witches and wizards are a lot more afraid of getting caught. And that's why Newt Scamander being in New York is such a goddamn problem. Oh man. Half this movie is Newt and the friends he picks up while he's here scrambling around to clean up his mess, but the real plot happens in the background of that, and basically Newt Scamander's mess, his animals getting loose, is being used by the bad guy as a cover for what he was already doing before Newt got here. So that's how that ties together. This is a Niffler. This was introduced in the fourth book, I believe, but completely not shown in the movies. Even though it's really an amusing, a really amusing magical creature.
Harry Potter could have used one of those going inside that vault.
Nifflers hunt down shiny things and will do anything to get them. They are home wreckers. And that was introduced in the fourth book along with about a bajillion subplots because that book was way too goddamn long.
No, book 5 is the longest in the series, right? Okay.
Book 5 to me was a struggle.
Book 5 is the longest and the most bloated. It's in fact it's so long that it's the only book in the series that breaks its formatting in the American release and squeezes more words onto every page, and it's still a much higher page count than books 4 and 6. You wouldn't get that in the UK if for any of our UK viewers. All of your books are actually all of the UK books have a smaller type font and less less wasted space in the margins. So their page counts are actually lower over there.
It's probably just because, I guess in America, having too many words on a page makes the books hard to read.
Scholastic really didn't want the pages to look intimidating. It was probably a good move at the time, but they didn't know book 5 was going to happen at that point because they published it. They started publishing it around the point book 3 was out. So they had to break their formatting for book 5, although they went right back to it in Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows. So, oh man, all of the books are great, but some of them have their flaws.
It's a magic cup.
I haven't read Harry
The
Potter.
Magical Congress.
The Magical Conquest of USA. Fun fact: it actually in this universe predates America itself.
Oh man, I thought for a second you were gonna say fun fact. It actually exists.
Well, as
No.
far as we know, we're all muggles here, so
No,
again,
no
if
magic,
any
no magic,
wizards
no
are
magic.
watching, you're assholes. Give us some of that magic, please.
It's funny you say that because in the textbooks, the charity textbooks, they basically have this sort of meta prologue written that says like these are the like that basically says that these are the actual books from the wizarding world. But then and reminds all Muggles reading that it's a work of fiction and you shouldn't take it too seriously. Those are four words.
But what if
by
I don't agree
Dumbledore.
that it's fiction?
It's just amusing. Like in the actual wizarding world, they would have published these books for Muggle consumption and tried to pass them off as fiction. It would have actually worked, you know. It's amusing to think of it as something that could happen. One of the interesting things about the seven book series is that the first book was published, I believe, the year after the seventh book would have ended, because they're all set in the 90s. And they end in like 97. 91 to 97 is the timeline there.
That is, I didn't know that when I was reading the book / watching the movies the first time. So when I saw, what's his name, Dursley, with like the terrible 90s bling in the seventh movie, I was like, oh my god, what are you wearing, you tool?
Yeah. Oh, man. Anyway, yeah, we saw the Ministry of Magic in the UK visualized for us in the fifth movie. Now we get to see the Magical Congress of USA, and boy, is it a different place.
I don't know, it seems to be full of whimsy and magic stuff, so it's basically the same
Yeah,
thing.
you know what? This doesn't really seem any different than a typical U.S. train station. Even the goblins are right.
The New Yorkers are all assholes, so that's normal.
Where's the magic?
It smells like shit everywhere. Everything's late.
It's very underplayed because we don't see them much, but the goblins and house elves that appear in this movie are the most amusing thing because they're so different from what you see in the British area. Anyway, this is our ministry, our president, I suppose, not our minister, president of MACUSA. I forget her name. It's something Pickery. It's something complicated like that. Pickery. It was shown on the newspapers at the beginning.
Yeah, Serafina Pickard.
Wait, do they actually call it MACUSA?
MACUSA. MACUSA is how they pronounce the acronym. Yes.
We could risk exposure, even though we apparently make no real effort into hide
Now,
anything.
this right here fucking pisses me off about this president. She dismisses Tina out of hand here, even though she sees Tina with Newt Scamander in hand. Later on, she gets on her case for not telling her about him.
Typical boss behavior.
It's one of those, why didn't you tell me? It's like, fuck you.
Why didn't you tell me before? I did tell you before.
As a writing element, it's kind of infuriating, because that's kind of been there, done that.
Yeah.
It's like, it kind of destroys the integrity of what's supposed to be a respectable boss character.
Well, yeah, Serafina Pickery is respectable. It's just that one.
Yeah.
It's just that she has that harried sort of I have better things to do attitude when it comes to Tina. But there's a reason for that. You find out later on. But Tina attacked a Muggle to defend a boy who was being abused. That boy being
The Flash.
Credence Barebone, who is one of the other major characters here. And Credence is not exactly an antagonist, but the major threat we're going to be facing. He's a creature called an Obscurus, and we'll get an explanation for that about halfway through the film. It's actually a really dark concept, but it ties in with something in the seventh book in a really cool way. I really like the Obscurus concept. It's probably the best thing this film brings to the franchise.
I don't know, it seems kind of obscure for me.
That didn't
Wah.
take long.
It's also the same word that the textbook's publisher label was used, which I feel was intentional. Anyway, yeah, wand permits. They have wand permits in America. You see what they did there?
Oh no, no! If this were really America, you'd be able to wave your wand wherever you damn well please.
Only in certain states. The other states would be too left-leaning.
Wands don't kill people. People kill people.
What did this wand ever do to you?
Anyway, this is a cliche, but they totally did the mixed-up case thing.
Again.
Yeah, that's a huge cliche.
But it works so well in this movie because of who winds up getting the case.
The fat lovable loaf.
He's actually a pretty competent character. I mean, he puts on a bit of a comedic attitude, but he's less of a he's the Ron Weasley of this movie, but he plays far closer to book Ron than movie Ron. Movie Ron was just kind of comic relief all day, all the time.
Everyone forgets how Ron basically got them out of the entire problem in the first book.
Yeah. Ron's smart and he's reliable. It's just he has a major jealousy problem, and he's the laid back one.
And an inferiority problem.
Yeah. And the movies play that up, but they don't really play like it wasn't until the 7th movie that they started trying to play Ron as a serious character again, and by then it was too little too late to really make up for it. So a lot of people who don't like Ron, they're basing that mostly on his movie portrayal.
Also, Ron doesn't like Draco, so if you want to make Draco a totally awesome and sympathetic character in your fanfiction, in order to make it work, you have to turn Ron into a literal Death Eater. I'm not actually joking. There are lots of fanfiction that
I was
does
about
that.
to say, I've read a substantial amount of Harry Potter fanfiction. That is exactly what they do. Ugh. God, what a cesspool. Anyway, yeah, introducing the second Salemers. The woman...
How do you know witches are living among us? Do any of them weigh the same as a duck?
There's a backstory to this, but it's on Pottermore. The Barrybone family comes from a group of wizards from, like, decades and decades past called Scourers. They were basically magical bounty hunters, but they got so corrupt that they started selling out fellow witches and wizards for money. So they were basically turned into pariahs among the witch and wizard community. And what wound up happening was that they wound up going into hiding among the Muggle community, and they would start trying to stamp out magic in their own children in order to blend in better, which is essentially what's happening here, although the movie doesn't tell you that. You just sort of see this woman as the Dursleys, but far, far worse. But there is a backstory reason to why she knows about magic, and why she's treating this boy specifically so poorly. Not the boy she's touching, the boy next to her. That's Credence, the kid with the awful bowl cut.
Can magical people, like, sense magic in other people, or
No.
is that... No?
No,
Okay.
only in fanfiction, where everything is
Okay.
Dragon Ball Z powers for some reason. Ugh.
Here-
This is the one creature that escapes from Newt's chest that never gets caught. Like, Newt sees it flying around and doesn't bother with it, because he knows which creature it is, and knows that it's not going to get seen, because it has specific powers, and it's not dangerous to muggles, so he might as well leave it be.
Robble. Oh, wait, no, the building's
Hey.
on fire.
They took her germs.
Anyway, Eddie Redmayne here is playing as Newt Scamander, and the woman next to him is Porpentina, or Tina for short, and she's gonna end up marrying him. We know that because she was mentioned in the about the author thing, but they never call her Porpentina audibly. The only time you see her full first name is when she shows her ID.
You wizards have stupid names.
It's just a very small detail that you'd have to pick up if you knew your stuff. Ah, God, he got away again. Yeah, he got
Great.
bitten by a magical
He's a
hedgehog.
vampire now.
Well, he got bitten by a magical hedgehog thing.
So can he run really fast now?
No. But he's gonna be
Aw.
sick for a few days.
But getting bitten by a radioactive spider gives you spider powers. I would assume getting bitten by a magical hedgehog lets you run fast.
That's how these things work, right?
Unfortunately not. Anyway, yeah, the shit snowball is rolling downhill fast.
So, okay, so just for my clarity, so instead of just throwing him in jail, they're having him try to catch all the things by himself.
No, not
Then,
yet. The situation is serious, but Tina is afraid to push the issue further with her higher ups because she's in hot water over attacking a Muggle, and the reason she found Newt in the first place was because she was watching a woman that she attacked. She was keeping an eye on the woman who was abusing Credence, but she has a restraining order against that, so she doesn't want to get in trouble over that. So, yeah, she's keeping it hidden for her own reasons, essentially.
okay,
They can't notice a mess if there's no mess to notice.
Because of that, she has to keep this Muggle hidden until he can be, until he can recover from the reaction he's having to his bite, and after that, they are required by law to modify this man's memory. So basically, they have to keep this situation hidden until they can resolve it. um, the thing is, Newt Scamander and the Muggle Man are going to run off and do their own thing. Because they don't agree with the way... Well, Newt doesn't agree with the way the American government views Muggles. He calls it backwards later in the film. Or maybe he already did.
Well, he just called it backwards now.
He did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Says the British guy who got us into this mess entirely.
The Niffler got out.
Again.
Also, the
Just-
Demiguise
oh,
got
goddamn
out. The Demiguise is a creature whose fur can be used to make temporary invisibility cloaks. Basically, it's got really good camouflage. It's an octo-camo monster.
We'll just wait for Snake to do it himself later.
But that's like 100 years from now, man.
Most of the creatures in this book were mentioned in the original printing of the Fantastic Beasts, but there are a few new ones thrown in, like a Thunderbird. And to commemorate that, there's a new edition of Fantastic Beasts coming out soon, which has new creature additions and better illustrations rather than J.K. Rowling's doodles like the original one had.
and then there's going to be mega magic evolutions, which when they hold a magic stone, they can become mega monsters. And then you go to the...
I call this Thunderbird Zapdos.
Anyway, the subplot involving the Barebones is about them trying to get the media in New York City to take them seriously and expose the witches and wizards and all of that. Of course, that's not.
How are we
happen.
going to prove that? Put them on a scale with a duck.
It does almost come to pass though, because of what happens at the end of this film. So all of this stuff builds up, but it seems disconnected early on, which is really odd for a movie, but it's basically the way J.K. Rowling writes all of her stories. It's just
So what newspaper is this supposed to be?
the Bugle Planet.
I was going to say, if he really wanted to be kind of wink, wink, nod, nods about it, you'd make it the Inquirer and have a look-alike of Charles Foster Kane walking around. Because this is the time period it would be.
This actress puts on a really good country bumpkin act. Well, not country bumpkin, but more like she has that bumpkin-ish, you can't quite take her seriously way of speaking until she turns nasty, and then you just want to punch her in the face. Anyway, yeah, these characters at the news studio are also going to come up later.
Wait, I may be mistaken, but is the bowl cut kid Adam Driver?
Hold on, I need to look at
the
it.
Flash earlier.
I've
Wait,
never
what is it?
actually looked it up, but I don't think so.
Because he looks kind of like Kylo Ren, but with a bowl cut.
Well, it's not Kylo Ren. It's Ezra Miller. Ezra Miller. He'll be playing the Flash.
Oh,
in the
that's
Justice
who it
League
is,
movie.
right? I knew he looked familiar.
The Harry Potter movies, for all of their little flaws and weak points, they've always had a good cast of actors, at least in the adult section, although the child actors did become much better as the series went on.
Yeah,
The-
they
Well, as you kind of have to go with movies, is that once you hit a certain age, you have to start taking the child quote unquote actors a bit more higher standard. But on like the first and second movies, you're free to. I mostly gave them a free pass because kids and all that.
yeah. The thing about this movie that makes it shine above the other films, though, is that it's a film with an entirely adult cast, so your protagonists are much more charismatic all throughout. Although Eddie Redmayne does sort of channel the 11th Doctor at times. Uh, I think it's the costume that makes him do that. It's not the same thing that the 11th Doctor wears, but it's similar enough to his
It's the
second
costume in the scruffy hair.
yeah, the hair in particular screams Doctor Who.
Yeah. Sometimes the way he carries himself also looks a bit Doctor Who-ish. Although one of the cool things about Redmayne's portrayal here is that he actually did some training for this role. He learned about what it would be like to actually stalk animals in the wild, so that
He practiced actual magic.
so that he could get a feel for how Newt Scamander would move. Anyway, this is what's her name again? Oh God. She's not a major character, but she's a strong supporting character. Queenie. That's the one. I knew it was something absurdly 20s like that, but she comes off at first as the sex appeal, but that's actually part of her character because she can read minds. So she's got strong sex appeal, but she knows what everyone is thinking about her. She's one of the most clever and insightful characters in this cast. But she catches everyone off guard because she plays up her act.
So is there like a magic spell to read minds, or is that just like a power?
It's a magical power, and some people are naturally better at it than others. It's called legilimency, and in the original Potter series, 3 major practitioners of it were Dumbledore, Snape, and Voldemort.
Oh, so Snape knew that everybody hated him the entire time and just didn't care. Okay.
Well, I think that was pretty obvious, but
I don't think Snape was able to do it at will. He's only ever shown.
But although that does beg the question: if Voldemort could do it, how come he didn't know Snape was secretly working for Dumbledore?
Because Snape was really good at defending against it, which was a major plot point in Book 5. He was supposed to be teaching Harry how to defend against it, but things didn't work out because putting those two in the same room together with no oversight is a bad idea.
Thanks, Dumbledore.
Yeah, Dumbledore was a bit of an ass in Book 5.
Dumbledore's a bit of an ass in general.
Well, then again, maybe Severus Snape should just get over his emotional problems instead of bullying a literal child. But, that's...
Yeah, Snape is, like, no matter what his redeeming qualities were, he was still the biggest asshole out of the good guys. Yeah.
No, I would still say Draco, but...
Draco's not really a good guy, though.
Well, yeah, out of the good guys.
Well,
Draco's a jerk.
Draco was more of a bad guy up until book 7, really. But he came around and sort of grew up.
I love how the Malfoys got off
He
completely
literally
scot-free.
became a Nazi, though.
Well, his heart was never in it. He got into it because his family was, but he was never in that mindset where he was totally on board with it. And by book 7, he was just sort of terrified and stuck in a bad place. But anyway, yeah, magical households. We're supposed to be keeping our magic secret, right?
It's behind closed doors, and the walls are encased with lead, so Superman can't find out.
I magicked up a quill that spouts ink whenever you write with it. You invented a pen.
Oh, man. It is kind of funny how old-fashioned a lot of wizarding things are, even as far as the 90s. But that's supposed to be, a quirk of their society's character. They really want to hold on to their traditions.
I love it in, what is it, book 4, where he's writing to Sirius. He's trying to explain what a PlayStation is.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I wasn't Harry's dad like big into collecting things like batteries or two because he
No,
thought
that's
they
No,
were
that was
Ron's
Ron's dad.
Yeah, he
Oh,
collects.
wait, oh,
he collects.
sorry.
He
That's what I
collects
meant to
Muggle
say.
artifacts, and he usually doesn't know what they're for. In the movie, they play this up for a lot of laughs. Like he asks Harry in the movie what the function of a rubber duck is. Oh man.
You laugh, but I'm pretty sure it is our biggest nuclear deterrent.
Well, maybe if you actually walked around London for once in your damn life.
The one of the cool things about the Harry Potter books versus the movies is that the books were really good at giving characters humorous quirks and personality aspects that made it easy to relax while reading about them. But when the time came for seriousness, they were goddamn competent characters. Goddamn it.
I think that's part of where the books and the movies kind of like where the form of the book doesn't really match with the form of a movie because the book wasn't really just like plot 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 action scene and then ending. The book is like a year in the life of the school, so there are entire chapters about them just hanging around, going to class,
Yeah.
like Quidditch matches, all
There
that
are
stuff.
chapters of them social linking. God damn.
And that just doesn't work with the movie. You can't like again,
Yeah.
like this is one of those things where like as a Netflix
long-form
series,
TV
maybe,
series, yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
but you're not going to sell that as
Yeah,
easily. So
yeah. You basically, a lot of the time, you basically have to read the books to get what's going on in the other movies. But this was written specifically to be a movie. It covers a much shorter time frame. The arc is a lot tighter and more finely compacted. Everything flows into everything here. And it's not a perfect movie. There's some cases of bland directing. This scene is kind of just, the over the shoulder shot a lot. Yeah, nice timing on that one movie. I was just getting to that.
Yeah, good old shot, reverse shot.
Yeah, the director who's in charge of the Harry Potter films right now is a good director, but not a fantastic director. There's no Steven Spielberg quality here. Although that does segue into a nice bit of trivia. Steven Spielberg was originally going to direct the first Harry Potter movie, but there were creative differences between him and Rowling.
for the tone that the first movie is trying to go for, he actually would be a pretty good pick.
Yeah, I think he would have been. It would have been interesting to see what that movie would have looked like. Chris Columbus was, oh god, he couldn't pace things for shit, which is the main thing in the first two movies that causes them to be a bit of a drag to watch.
Well, the biggest problem with the first movie is that is kind of a problem with the first book is that you have to try to explain everything really quickly.
Yeah,
Well,
because you
yeah,
want to
but-
jump to the magic stuff, but you have to explain how do they do magic with wands? How do wands work? How
And
do you
kids
do
don't
all
have
the
the
magics?
patience for kids don't have the patience for a 4-hour extended cut.
Yeah, but you know what? This movie feels like a good starting point to me. Like
Well, because you
You
don't
would think so?
well,
Like you would introduce this movie to people in the Harry Potter series?
Yeah, I
before
think-
the actual Harry Potter
I
series?
think it would work. I think it would work just fine. I mean, you wouldn't catch the references, the places where it's supposed to tie into book 7, but that just means you have something else that you'll notice when you get to the books later.
In hindsight.
Yeah, and well, you'll see them when you get to them in the book and realize they're more important than they would have looked at the time. Also, yeah, this movie also builds off of stuff that was introduced in Book 7, such as the case with infinite amounts of space in it. Hermione Granger had a...
bag of holding.
Yeah, Hermione Granger basically made herself a bag of holding, but Newt Scamander, just to show her up, I suppose, has made a briefcase with an entire wildlife preserve hidden inside it, and with a Muggle-worthy setting so that he can open it up and show it at customs.
So that's where all the game characters got it.
So he basically has a hideout in
And
his
and
suitcase.
the only reason that jumping around scene exists is so you can go, oh, it's real magic. It's not just a hole in the floor that they walk into.
Which is, it's fine. I'm glad they did that. Because I'm pretty sure everybody... I mean, I was thinking it too when they first like, oh, it's just a hole in the bottom of the briefcase. So I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Oh yeah. They've been doing little tricks like that in all of the Harry Potter movies from the starting point of, I think, Dobby moving a chair.
So I'm just wondering, like, did they just like get somebody with a string on the chair legs and like pull it to make it move? Then
Probably.
You get a really thin fishing line. You won't be able to see it on camera.
Oh.
Well, less light bounces
Well,
off the
moving
yeah.
stuff around with green screen.
Whoa,
effects
whoa,
has
whoa, whoa, whoa,
always been
whoa,
a
whoa,
thing.
whoa. That's okay. So I was looking away from the screen to take a drink, and then suddenly I see him chopping things with the knife, and I'm like, "Whoa! Did I just watch us open an entirely different movie?"
Yeah, he's chopping up raw meat for the animals. This is also a plot point that he's establishing. There's a specific venom that he's harvested from one of his creatures that alters memories. This is swooping evil, and it's going to be like the creature that you see the most of in the movie, because it's actually a partner of Newt's that he uses when he's in a fighting situation. It has the ability to, poison people with a memory-altering drug, and it also it makes a fantastic platforming stepping stone. Apparently,
Joke's on you, Newt. I didn't see this movie in 3D.
they don't have too many 3D tricks in this film, fortunately.
No, they don't.
I
mean,
think
I
3D movies have really kind of died down a lot.
Because they realize that no one gives a shit.
Yeah, basically.
Well, no, I would argue 3D movies are still a thing, but they don't go for the obvious, in-your-face moments anymore.
Like
Yeah.
they don't do the 3D shot as much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. I've read the script, the screenplay, because they published that. There are a lot of little details in this movie that are clearly directorial choices. They're very small and underplayed because the script doesn't allow too much room for them. But stuff like the beam struggle or Graves using magic without his wand aren't in the script. They're more stuff that the director brought to the table, I suppose, because they're style choices that the other movies used, and they're familiar. I like them better in this movie because they're not as overdone, though. It feels like the rules of magic in this movie are more consistent with the books than they were in the other films. Because the other films took a anything can happen, so what the fuck? Why do we care approach to magical consistency, whereas the books had it wasn't really explicitly outlined, but there were rules that the books
It's almost like you need rules for it to be believable.
yeah, the books stuck to a set of rules that made it that made it feel like less of an asshole when something magic happened. I like the giant dung beetles. I have no idea whether or not those are a creature that was listed in the book, though.
So is the whole movie just going to be that guy? Oh, hello, Cthulhu horse. How are you today?
This is a grab horn. This is definitely in the book. The magical creatures are actually less of a focus in this film than I originally thought they would be, though.
Well, it's mostly just because they're CGI and they have to be CGI, and I think that they know that that's not really what is going to compel anybody but like maybe really, really young kids.
It feels like the magical creatures are there to highlight the background universe rather than being a focus of the plot. I mean, there's a fair amount of time spent retrieving certain creatures during the film, but it's really Newt Scamander's experience with the Obscurus that makes him important to the plot.
My name is Don Wilson. I'm the owner of America's largest magic nature preserve.
This bag of holding is pretty goddamn big. Okay, the creature that we're seeing now is called a bowtruckle, another thing from the books that was not shown in the movie. These are little woodland creatures that live in trees that are especially good for making wands from.
Wait, are they inside the bag right now?
Yeah, they're inside the bag of holding.
Yeah.
How do they breathe?
It has air in it.
Look, I'm pretty sure any sort of question you have regarding the laws of nature can be summed up with magic.
Yeah.
So don't bother asking.
Well, the bag's probably not airtight either, so.
The bag 92.
I mean, the animals were able to get out pretty easily, in fact.
Hey,
This
wait,
is
this is where they get all the Pikmin monsters from. Okay, this looks almost that looks almost exactly like the one of the Pikmin enemies, actually. Except without the wings.
This is Newt Scamander introducing our Muggle friend here to his source of income in the future, and you'll understand that at the end of the movie. But you see the eggshells that this creature makes? They're silver. Basically, Akamis make really expensive eggs. And since they're pure silver, you can sell them off and make a ton of cash. I ain't got the brains to make this up. I like that because that ties into the ending too. I didn't actually notice that that tied into the ending. It's like that entire scene was setting up where oh god, I keep forgetting the names of the characters in this movie. I've only seen it once, so um Jacob. Jacob is his name. It's like that entire scene was there to set up where Jacob would end up at the end of the film. I think this movie is really good at maintaining its sense of Harry Potter whimsy, but still having a really serious tone to it, which is a lot of what makes the Harry Potter books go, especially after book 4. But I have no idea what that one is. But the thing is,
So where do we get to the glass case with Starro in it?
the thing is, and this really pissed me off about the movies, is that after book 3, where Alfonso Cuarón brought a really mature feeling and a lot of visual flair to the series, they really played up the maturity, in massive air quotes, of the story and characters. Like, they were really trying to play up how much of teenagers that the teenagers were.
Oh
And
yeah,
how
that's a common thing. Like, oh, this isn't just for kids anymore. Rah, rah,
yeah,
rah,
and
rah.
how dark the dark aspects of the story were, and that threw off the tone of the entire latter half of the movie series and made it feel a lot more like a young adult series. And I don't feel like the movies really recovered from that until Deathly Hallows, where I have problems with the way that told its story, especially since it had to play a lot of catch up with stuff that the other movies cut out. But the the darker tone of that particular book fit that portion of the story much better than the way Half Blood Prince handled it, or even I would argue Goblet of Fire.
Honestly, I don't. I've only ever seen Deathly Hollows Part One once, and I've actually never seen Part Two at all. But I remember not liking Deathly Hollows Part One very much, and I was never really a big fan of the final book in the series either. I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan. At least, like I was big into it when it came out, but like I could kind of just take it or leave it at right now. But the seventh movie, I don't know, it lost me in a lot of parts. It felt very aimless in what it was trying to do, and I mean, I guess that's kind of the point since the characters are aimless at that point in the story. But
Yeah, Aimless is a big part of that plot, but the other thing that made Deathly Hallows go is that it was building on a lot of stuff that was established before in other books that the movies cut out.
oh yeah, like how the mirror just kind of appears out of
Yeah,
nowhere.
that's the biggest example, but like other stuff like Grindelwald, he was mentioned very early on. You were supposed to know that Dumbledore had a conflict with him. You were also supposed to know that Dumbledore had a brother, and that was cut out. There's a whole lot of stuff that was cut out that was vital to Deathly Hallows' plot, and they had no idea that they had to have it there. But they had advisory from J.K. Rowling about stuff that they shouldn't cut out, but it felt like they were unwilling to keep that stuff in because even the one thing that they did keep, which was the house elf creature, appeared for like a brief cameo with no characterization whatsoever. And even when he did appear in Deathly Hallows, basically nothing happened with him.
I remember that was a big thing when the movies came out. Was when that movie came out was is that Rowling there was like a big deal about Rowling says don't forget Creature because he's gonna do stuff later on, and then yeah, but that was like there was other stuff that I'm sure she had to have known about that they just either didn't listen to her about keeping part of the plot or like they just
Mm.
didn't have time or maybe stuff slips through. It's a long series. It's very easy to miss something
Yeah.
that's important
Yeah.
from point to point.
What makes the books have the effect that they do in the long term is how well tied together they are. And it's not like there weren't mistakes in that because there were. A few of them were corrected in later printings, but there's a lot of points where stuff is established one or two books ahead of time, or in some cases 7 books ahead of time. And yeah, she's going to do exactly what you think she's going to with his belt. Yeah, things went really dark after that whimsical journey into into Newt Scamander's case, but notice that we saw the Obscurus for the first time in that scene, and then directly transitioned to Credence, as if the movie couldn't give us a bigger nudge. Ugh. Wow. Okay. That looks ominous. I wonder if that's the Erumpent.
That's the Red October. I lost in the middle of the ocean and ended up in the New York River again.
I like Queenie's response when they find out that these two have snuck out. But we made them cocoa. She's so hurt. It's adorable.
What do they do in the Harry Potter UK? What do they do in what do they do to Muggles who find out about magic?
Well, generally they will modify their memories, but there's a lot more leeway in the UK for Muggles who are told by trusted friends or spouses. It's still a dangerous area where there's a lot of distrust. Like, you're not always going to get a good reaction when someone finds out that you're a witch or wizard, which in those cases I suppose the Ministry of Magic would get called in. But there's still marriages and, Muggle parents and half-bloods, which is a lot of the impetus behind what the Death Eaters do.
Whap, whap.
This is a scene that some people complain about, and they say, why didn't Newt Scamander summon oh god. I've said the name of this creature 3 times already. Well, why didn't he summon the creature, is what people ask. They call it a plot hole. It's not a plot hole. You can't use the summoning charm Accio to summon a living thing, or at least if you can, it's very rare living things. Like, it's one thing that's been shown not to work in the books. But what Newt does is he summons the stuff that the Niffler has in its pocket. Because he managed to get a good look at some of it. And that's what pulls the Niffler to him. So it's not actually a plot hole, it's a point where some particularly, I'm going to say simple viewers jumped the gun on complaining.
That's okay, idiots. So he's like, yeah, you're trying so hard not to offend anybody. It's like, let's go, idiots.
Sometimes people need to be offended.
Well, not, yeah, you see, it's the jewelry that comes out first, but the Niffler is just sort of getting dragged along for the ride.
Hey, dude, snatch some of that. It's worth something.
I can dodge jewelry. What I'm saying, Newt, is eventually you won't have to.
I have no idea what spell Newt just used to catch the Niffler. But it's glorious.
Glacium Jelloium.
Glass to Jello. The lesser-known special little cousin of Sticks to Snakes. Oh, come on. We don't even look like we're robbers. Would robbers be covered in jewelry? They'd have it in a bag.
With money signs on it.
No, they're the sticky bandits.
They are the Sticky Bandits.
Yeah, they are in
Anyway,
New York.
This...
Oh, that
a
doesn't look
lion.
like a magical beast at all. That's just
No,
a
that's-
normal, mundane beast.
That's just
Lame.
a lion that happens to have escaped from the zoo.
Oh shit, we're getting a Harry Potter Narnia crossover.
Which means something is going wrong at the zoo.
Yeah, but the plot twist, Newt doesn't actually know a single thing about any animal that's not magical, so he's useless.
He probably wouldn't, actually, for that matter. But this is the Erumpent, and this is another thing that was mentioned in Book 7 that was completely cut out. We never saw an actual Erumpent, but we did see one of its horns, and it was the reason that Xenophilius Lovegood's house exploded in the book. But that wasn't like, I think there was a horn in the background, but it looks nothing like this Erumpent. So, yeah. It's just kind of it's a vital detail in the book. They make sure to bring it up before his house explodes, too. These creatures hide explosive liquid in their horns, and when they ram into you, they blow you sky high.
Why am I putting on football gear?
I don't think this padding is going to help if the Erumpent actually charges at him, Newt. I mean, I get that you're trying to raise his morale a little, but it's not going to work.
It's purely a placebo effect.
Anyway, this is a female Erumpent and it's mating season. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're compatible with hippos.
This is where the movie being a bit more adult and mature than
It's getting some
yeah.
It's gonna
steamy hot.
it's gonna become some. We're gonna get some Discovery Channel action on right now.
Yeah,
Exactly it, because like it's never specified, but what Newt is doing here is sort of a mating ritual. He's trying to attract the Erumpent's attention by
Strong with your
spritzing on a
face.
little Erumpent musk and doing the sort of things an Erumpent would do if they were trying to attack
skitty
a
on
female.
hot skitty on Werelord action.
That's where all the explosive liquid is
How did
stored, obviously.
how did you?
Man, Gen 8 just really sucked. It had these weird
I only have to
things,
imagine
you
what
couldn't
the
just
actor
go
felt
to the
doing this in a
daycare
big
center
green
anymore.
screen
You had
room.
to do a choreographed dance. Like, oh man.
You know
it's
what
called
I
I'm
mean.
getting
There's
paid
really
for
nothing
this.
No, I
to
think-
hack
I will
off
do
of
I
whatever
think
the
this
hell
is
you
an
want me to do.
actual set,
stupid stuff.
but well, to be fair, this isn't something that requires a real emotional response to something doing stuff. So it's actually one of the easier kinds of sequences to do with pure CGI. Oh yeah, and he just sort of sniffed at the bottle of a rumpet musk and spilled some of it. So that's not good.
Tonight I fuck.
God damn it, Jacob! And this plan was going so well.
Man, when you said that we were gonna fuck like animals, you really meant it.
Oh, you meant that literally.
I'm not sure if I'm into that actually.
Although I guess I should have looked at the hint when you said it'd be a magical
Yeah,
experience.
just any joke made during the Potter series, you just insert the Voldemort laugh.
Oh, and as if things couldn't go any worse, a monkey stole Newt's wand.
And so several $1,000s, no, hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money were wasted on these magical shenanigans. This is a serious problem, people.
Well, you know,
Why don't they just
all
do
that
that
the
for
government
everything then?
has to do is cast a few reparo spells around the zoo, so... Anyway, yeah, that's what the Erumpent does. It injects explosive fluid into things, and things explode. Slowly. Okay.
So,
like-
where do magical animals live? In the I know that Hogwarts is in a place where nobody can find it because magic, but are there entire
There are reserves where dragons are kept. There are specific places where certain magical creatures live. But basically, what Newt Scamander is writing his book for in the first place is to educate his fellow witches and wizards on why they should be protecting magical creatures instead of killing them. So basically, at this point in time, magical creatures are not treated all that well. So he's got a bit of a noble cause going on here.
I don't know what Kowalski was so worried
One
about.
of-
Thing already blew her load
I
inside.
Now
think
Ros-
this
now
is
Roosevelt was already
before
president.
national parks were even a thing in the United States, because that was Roosevelt was oh yeah, he's post
World
oh
War
yeah,
II.
I got my Roosevelts switched. FDR was post the Depression. Theodore Roosevelt was pre-Depression. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. Well, I mean, we're still assholes to animals, but
Yeah. Well, in Witches and Wizards' case, their big worry is magical creatures exposing the magical community.
Okay.
In America, breeding magical creatures is specifically outlawed. And actually owning them is a crime. Which makes
Vote
Newt
for
Scamander,
Charles Foster Kane.
well, public enemy number one right now, really. Anyway, you know that thing about magic being a thing that they're trying to keep hidden and blatant displays of magic being a no-no? Yeah, masquerade and all that.
and
Well, That's not going to go. Well, yeah, this is going to be a bit of a problem here. Now, apparently, this guy did something to piss Credence off. Like, I think the way he was talking made him mad. I don't really,
Something.
I honestly don't remember between the exchange between him and Credence.
I don't really understand why Credence went after him, but Credence isn't in control of himself when he does this. So it might have been a purely subconscious thing. And
Yeah, he probably
he's
said
not
something about him.
mentally all there either. So
Yeah, your bowl cut looks ridiculous. Justice League is gonna suck. Oh.
anyway, yeah, this is a politician at a major political party, and mysterious things happen, culminating in murder.
Yeah.
Oh, like everyday politics. Fwe, 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 fwe.
They're always used for ominous things.
I always knew organs were evil. Yeah, have you ever seen a
That's a very different kind of
non-anonymous
organ,
organ? That's what I thought.
Baseball games, I guess.
This is a pretty big deal, and you can see why Makuza would be in a real tizzy after this. In fact, Makuza isn't the only one in a tizzy. They basically get called to task by the international,
Interpol.
well, the wizarding equivalent of the UN, I suppose.
Yeah, I think Interpol would be a better
This is
comparison.
this is
Yeah.
Wait, they're actually going to hold
not to mention
America
this is pre-World War
accountable?
II. This is
Whoa.
before
They're
World War
going
II,
to
everything.
they're going to hold Makuza accountable. Yeah.
I don't think America can pretend it's the boss of everything.
when I said Makuza predated America, I didn't tell the whole story. The thing about Makuza is, unlike the UK magical government, Makuza has no affiliation with the actual non-magical United States government. They have no ties whatsoever. They don't do what the UK government will do is if something really terrible happens, like say an escaped murderer or a war with Voldemort, they'll inform the Prime Minister about it, so that the Muggle government can take precautions. Or
so how do they keep the wait? So the Muggle government knows about the wizarding community.
Only the Prime Minister. Only the Prime Minister. They kind of this is like the beginning of Half-Blood Prince, but they contact the Prime Minister directly, and he makes sure things get done, and they can also make sure that magical bodyguards find their way to the appropriate individuals if needed.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about how that would work in today's context, and no, that's not working in how the world works today. I can't see that working.
Well, they contact the Prime Minister in private, so yeah. And it's like, is the Prime Minister going to, tell anyone about this? He'd be laughed out of office. It's kind of a shitty situation for the Prime Minister, and the book knows this, so it plays it up for laughs. But yeah. But Makuza doesn't even go that far. They handle their own stuff, and basically if the U.S. government ever found out about them,
Because there's more of us than there are of them.
And that's their biggest fear. So yeah, Newt Scamander gets outed from his own case, in the middle of the Interpol meeting.
This was the trailer scene.
Yeah. Hey, this is the current Minister of Magic for Britain is this totally dapper looking dude. Now apparently Newt has a really famous brother who's a war hero.
Yeah, war hero.
Do they mention that in the movie, or is that a book
They
thing?
just did mention it. And it's like, oh, the war hero? No, this is his brother. Anyway, because Newt knows what an Obscurus attack looks like, Obscurus are very rare. He's able to identify the cause of this man's death immediately. but he doesn't have. Well, he has an Obscurus in its case, but it couldn't cause any harm without a human without a human body to host. He kept his own Obscurus for study, so that he could maybe find a way to save witches or wizards who develop an Obscurus. But well, Pickery doesn't like the idea of there being an Obscurial in America because that's very bad juju. So she goes into full denial mode immediately. And Graves here is totally happy to play along with that because he's trying to find the Obscurus for his own reasons. This is the part where Graves graduates from being a kind of charismatic supporting character to being the full-on bad guy. Now, the thing about this is Graves could totally have saved Tina in this situation if he wanted to, because he saw the case, he heard her previous claims. But unlike Pickery, who probably honestly just forgot about that whole debacle, Graves is keeping his mouth shut on purpose. Anyway, this is where we find out about what Obscurials are. Basically, when a young witch or wizard is oppressed to the point where they try to suppress their magic, they develop a dark parasitic force, which kind of goes all Dark Souls on the place whenever it gets angry.
So their repressed magic turns into a creature?
Yeah.
Like, literally?
Yeah,
Huh.
and eventually it kills them. There are, according to Newt, no documented cases of an Obscurial living past the age of 10. But there are two possible cases. There are two cases. One confirmed case and one possible case of it happening. The possible case is Dumbledore's sister, who the description of whom that we get in book 7 matches the Obscurial description. But the confirmed case is Credence, who is a teenager and a very powerful Obscurial. He's the creature that was rampaging around the town before Newt arrived. And that's what Graves is after. Graves is a bit of a doofus, though. He makes a deal with Credence to find the Obscurial, but he doesn't think Credence is the Obscurial because Credence is too old. So yeah. He thinks it's this young girl here. And the movie is probably trying to trick you into thinking that too at this point.
Yeah, I had my doubts. It's all a matter of what the camera
Red
focuses
herring.
on the most. And it's like, wait a minute, that's too obvious in that case. It's gotta be the Flash.
Well, the Harry Potter stories have always had red herrings in them, some more obvious than others.
Yeah, like Snape, you're supposed to think Snape, like as far back as the first movie, you're supposed to think Snape is the bad guy.
You're supposed to think Snape is the bad guy in the first movie. You're supposed to think Snape is the bad guy again in the sixth movie, or the sixth book rather, and it turns out he's not.
Well, you don't find out that he's not the bad guy until the seventh book, though.
Yeah,
in that
until
case.
the very end. The first chapter I read when I got my book day one. I'm horrible at spoilers.
What?
Oh, you mean you didn't do what everyone else did and just flip it to the back, open the last page,
Well,
and see
you
if you
see,
read
Read
it?
the last page first.
My midnight release Deathly Hallows story is a bit of a trip because I went to Barnes & Noble to experience the release party because it was going to be the last one, so I wanted to go there. But my pre-order was actually the mall across the street, which wouldn't open until the day after. So I went there with my own, public transit money. Obviously, buses aren't going to run at midnight, so I basically just sat on a bench outside the mall all night and occupied myself with random stuff. I was so tired by the time that the store opened in the morning that I couldn't read the book properly. But while I was on the bus home, I cracked it open and happened to read the Snape chapter. Ah, jeez.
Ugh.
I remember the controversy. It wasn't a big controversy, but there were a lot of people who accused Rowling of taking the plot idea from fan theory after that. but that sort of died down as people evaluated the books and realized there was a lot more foreshadowing than they took into account. For one thing, the particular potions ingredients that Snape quizzes Harry on in the first book are like a coded message for foreshadowing that plot twist. If you look at them in the language of flowers, it's kind of it's really it's a mind blowing thing when you find out about it.
It's just kind of silly that people would accuse Rowling of stealing things from fan theory when fan theory is basically just taking ideas from the books and trying to put them together to guess what's going to happen eventually. That's just it's just like saying, okay, yeah, you're you're accusing me of copying my own foreshadowing is basically what they're doing.
The hallmark of a good mystery is the ability to figure out the solution before it's revealed.
Yeah, that's actually, or at least most of it. Like something should. The being tricked by a mystery shouldn't be the game or movie or book or whatever pulling information out of its ass at the end to change what you know. It should be you not being able to see the information you know in a specific way, which is part of the reason why I really don't like Professor Layton, because all they do at the end is just pull out like a gigantic ass load of stupid explanations at the end instead of yeah. So
but it's stuff like that makes stuff like Detective Conan Case Closed a fun mystery series to read or watch, depending on your tolerance for subtitles, I suppose. Anyway, yeah, Makusa, unlike the UK, has a death sentence. So instead of
how uncivilized,
it's arguable which of the two is worse, because Makusa, well, obviously the death sentence is a huge controversy in the first place, and their method for executing people is really goddamn creepy. But on the other hand, the UK has Azkaban, and Azkaban is possibly the most inhumane thing in the entire goddamn Harry Potter franchise, including everything fucking Voldemort does. So yeah,
Are they wiping her memories right now, or
they are basically making her focus on really happy memories that mesmerize her.
Yeah, they take your most precious memory and they have you relive that while they kill you, essentially.
Yeah. Well, they're trying.
So that
it's basically the magical equivalent of what the death penalty is now in America, where you're trying to be humane, sort of, but it's always a debate as to whether you've achieved that yet. Like
it's like a magical lethal injection.
Yeah, even with the lethal injection, there are people who postulate, who put forward the idea, and they have evidence, I think, like not conclusive, but enough evidence to be concerned that it actually is a very painful way to go.
Yeah, it's just, not to get into the ethics of the death penalty, but at least in the case of a magical world, like you can understand them like not wanting to let wizards hang around in prison if they can wizard their way out. But then again, like you said, the only way to make them not be able to wizard out is to make the worst prison ever created. So, yeah.
yeah. Oh man. But it's interesting that they bring this stuff up in this movie, that Rowling brought this stuff up in this movie, because while there are no definitive, ethical statements made, and there weren't any definitive ethical statements made about Azkaban either, it's just a horrifying concept from the reader's point of view. They bring these things up as points to mention about the cultures, rather than, telling you what to think about it. And yeah, the entire reliving memories thing sort of fell apart in Makusa's face here, because Tina started reliving a really bad memory halfway through. The memory of when she attacked Credence's guardian.
So did they mix up her spell then? Or
I guess they messed up. They just maybe they just dragged it out by accident. Anyway, Newt Scamander had a bow truckle on him, and it turns out bow truckles are really good at picking locks.
Go! Use wing attack!
And the swooping evil, remember what I said about it being a good, oh, someone needs a new wand. And yeah, that's basically a vat of acid that's going to rise up and instantly disintegrate the person being executed. It's a pretty goddamn horrifying setup they've got there. I mean, I suppose it's supposed to cause instant painless death, and if you kill someone fast enough, that's always going to be true. But oh god, is it a horrifying thing to watch in third person. Anyway, yeah, swooping evil, platform jumping. It's actually going to be a stepping stone. I want to see this made into a video game. It's like Newt Scamander. It's like Newt throws out the hat from Mario Galaxy Odyssey, from Super Mario Odyssey.
Mario Galaxy.
It's like that's actually like tie-in movies aren't really a thing. Tie-in movie video games, I should say, aren't really a thing anymore. Like there were games for every single Harry.
Well, because they obviously have a very notoriously bad reputation. So I think companies realize that if they have such a bad reputation and no one's going to buy them from such, let's not even
That's
bother.
true, but like every Harry Potter movie up to like 5 or 6 had a game.
No, they all had games. There was a
even
there was
7.
even
A 7.
yeah, 7 had a 2-part game. It was pretty terrible. It was just kind of a Resident Evil 4 style shooter. Order of the Phoenix, Order of the Phoenix and Half-Blood Prince had these kind of boring sandboxy Hogwarts games, and 4 had a beat 'em up, a sort of action game. 1 through 3, however, had like 3 different games apiece for every different platform, and the ones on consoles were like Zelda-likes, you know, and they were actually pretty good.
I remember playing 1 and 2 on GBA, and they're not very good.
Well,
so.
yeah, the GBA games are horrible. In fact, you know, look up sometime the Order of the Phoenix game on GBA. It's the most horrifyingly bad video game you'll ever see in your life, including all the usual offenders. Ugh. And like Prisoner of Azkaban on GBA had a turn-based RPG, which could have been good if they'd put more into it, but it just sort of turned into Legacy of Goku Harry Potter edition. Lady things. Yeah, this is where she really plays up her outward image as a sort of a floozy to, you know, get out of a tight spot. I like Queenie. I hope she has a larger role in the later films.
Are they doing more movies based off of this specific character?
They're going to be more Fantastic Beasts.
Oh, yeah.
Movies.
There's going to be a series of 5, from what I understand. It's going to center on Newt Scamander and his companions, and it's going to focus on the Gellert-Grindelwald War, which is basically the prequel thing that you would go to for Harry Potter, because all of the prequel stuff that's hinted at in Book 7 happens during this time period. Dumbledore and Grindelwald having their fight, the whole thing with the Elder Wand and the Deathly Hallows.
I think Dumbledore has been confirmed for the second movie.
Yeah,
so.
he has.
Yeah, they just.
So have they cast a young Dumbledore
I think
yet?
they just announced who the Dumbledore
Yes.
is. I don't remember who it is.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, this is your big foreshadowing as to who Graves actually is, because he gives Credence here a pendant that has the Deathly Hallows sign on it, which is Grindelwald's sign, or the sign he adopted, sort of like the swastika. There was a big
It's Jude Law who's playing Dumbledore.
Huh. I can see that working.
Yeah. Of course, the instant question that everyone asked when they found out Dumbledore was going to be in the movie is, are we going to explore his homosexuality?
That's not really important. Like,
It's not important to his character, no. I mean, you can sort of see shades of it in Book 7.
But we gotta have that Brokeback Mountain scenes.
To me, it's just not important in the grand scheme of things.
It's not, yeah, it's really not. Well, if they can work some of it in organically, then good on them. But, you know...
Hollywood tends to have a hard time
for-
doing that, though.
Yeah, forcing that stuff into a story has always been a good way to cheapen the quality of it. And then it just winds up backfiring and making it look like you're crying for attention.
it's tricky because obviously, like, if you want to push that stuff, you want to. I'm sorry, I'm totally tripping over my over my own words. Like, it's okay to, like, it's totally great to have those kinds of things in it. It's just that those sorts of, like, if you're trying to do like a homosexual thing in, or any other kind of thing in a movie or whatever, it's going to be heavily scrutinized both by people who would want that sort of thing and by people who don't want that sort of thing.
Yeah, like the biggest example in recent memory is Baldur's Gate Siege of Dragonspear, where there was a transsexual NPC who just sort of spouts her transsexuality at you out of nowhere, and it just exists as for nothing more than to have that statement there, and then to add insult to injury, doesn't let your character in this role playing game where you're allowed to decide to be evil and an asshole and go around murdering townspeople, you can't express any displeasure toward it. It's so forced that it's painful, and that's what makes it not work. And all the criticism of this got lost in the controversy over, oh God, you hate this expansion because you're a homophobe or a transphobe or whatever.
Yeah, that's always the first thing.
Yeah, and to be fair, there were a lot of those assholes in the comments too, sort of jumping on the bandwagon to criticize it. But the thing is, if you're going to tell a story about a character, if you want to make people feel something about that character, if you want to make them feel something positive about that character even, it has to be something that comes from them rather than from your story. The story provides the ingredients and the audience is the cooking pot, essentially. So you give them something to feel something about. You do not try to force them to feel anything in particular about it. You trust them to think about it and understand it and form some sort of, thought about it. Ugh. Yeah, anyway. We're in a wizarding bar.
Yeah, these conversations drive me to drink.
Confound those magical creatures.
Yeah, and it's this wizarding bar has like a house elf working behind the bar. There's trolls and goblins all over the place. It's like you never. It's like a Star Wars cantina moment, but you never saw this in the UK area of Harry Potter.
Yeah, the house elves and the goblins or whatnot weren't like walking around.
Yeah,
at
there's
any
a lot of.
point.
It's like for as far ahead as they are in terms of wizard muggle relations in the UK, the UK Ministry of Magic and the UK Magical Society is far more segregated in terms of witches and wizards and magical creatures. So the goblins basically stick to Gringotts. The house elves are servants or nothing at all. They're all in their own specific corner of the world.
So, fun fact, Narlac is voiced by Ron Perlin, who needed the least amount of CGI to fit the role.
I like this detail about the goblins that we never saw in the previous movies, but they curl their fingers back to hold things. Which is something that we wouldn't have been able to see in the previous movies, because they were always like makeup creatures in the previous movies rather than CG. Oh, man.
I like Ron Perlman. He's a personal favorite of mine.
Oh, Ashwinder eggs. That's another detail from the book. Those are basically eggs laid by snakes that come out of magical fires that have been left burning too long, and the eggs themselves will start fires, so the eggs have to be frozen if you want to preserve them. In any case, this character is really, really memorable, even though he only appears for this one scene. I'm hoping we'll see him again, but we'll find out.
He's in the trailers. He was in the trailers too, I remember.
Yeah.
Because he's important looking and
It's fun to see a goblin who's so separated from the Harry Potter social norm for goblins. Like, he's not part of the Gringotts Bank that, all-powerful Goblin Nation, the fan fiction writers, made up to give them some sort of color. He's just a goblin. and he exists in his own niche in this city so far removed from Gringotts. And he's so goddamn human about it. Like, this is a pretty stereotypical noir role.
Noir.
Did I pronounce that right? Noir, noir. Le. It's the kind of character that you'd see in basically every movie set in this time period.
Oh, he's an asshole. Okay.
Yeah. I like the fedoras that the Makusa enforcers wear. They look like private eyes, but well, oh man. They also have the long coats, which look good for wizards. Which I suppose they go with that style so that they blend in when they're out trying to figure out stuff.
Yeah, of course. That's exactly what
But
it
it
is.
also looks good for a wizard as well. So it's probably the best style they could have gone with to both keep their magical appearance and to not look magical to people who don't know what's going on. Anyway, yeah, Credence found a toy wand underneath his adopted sister's bed. But of course, Mrs. Asshole Barebone,
It's from Mattel.
she automatically assumes it was something that belonged to Credence,
Her room.
even though he was in her room. This doesn't make any sense. God damn it. Like, I know she knows secretly that Credence has magical blood in him, so she has a reason to jump to that conclusion. But god damn, she didn't even ask any questions. Yeah, this is where she spells out that she knows Credence's mother was a witch. But unfortunately, this also gives, Modesty a reason to stand up to her mother. And that turns out to be the trigger. It's time to start the third act, people.
Yay. Action
Huzzah.
scenes.
Well, we're not quite into the third act. I think there's one more whimsical magical creature retrieval mission we need to go through. But this is essentially where the main plot kicks off. Because Credence is an Obscurial, and he hadn't exploded around his abusive guardian yet. Why he hadn't, I don't know. Maybe it has to do with him just being repressive and being more guarded around her. But the Obscurial finally breaks loose, and, well, all hell comes with it.
There's only so much you can take before you blow up.
Yeah. But he didn't try. He wasn't doing it to defend himself. It was to defend Modesty that came out.
Modesty is the name of the girl, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Modesty and Credence. They have those names that hint that the person who named them was, religious to the point of being unhealthily obsessed with it.
Though I don't know why they didn't change their last names. Barebone?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's an obvious wizarding name, which I think was supposed to be the point. Like, you're supposed to know, even without knowing the Scourer backstory, that this family has connection to magical families. In any case, yeah, now we get to spend some time with the demiguise in alchemy. Tiptoe real slow. Now, the interesting thing about this creature, and I don't think this was in the book, even though the demiguise itself was mentioned, is that its vision operates on probability. It can see the most likely immediate future and react to it a little bit ahead of time. So apparently the only way to sneak up on one is to not be predictable.
Yeah, but can you be
Couldn't it predict
unpredictable
you're trying to
if
be
you're trying
unpredictable?
if you're trying to be unpredictable?
I have no idea how that would work.
I bet
And that's why we don't
you
think
didn't
about
explain how to
shit
do this.
like
So everyone's trying to
this
circle
on a
going,
daily
woo.
basis.
It's a pretty meta concept too. As far as destiny, time travel, and stuff goes, Harry Potter has just enough consistency in it that you can sort of start to see what rules there are, but you can also sort of grasp the idea that even the wizarding community doesn't really know, like, exactly how everything works. There seem to be a lot of conflicting elements there, but nothing super contradictory is ever shown, at least until the stage play, because goddamn.
Probably not.
Is that canon or?
Uh, I'm going to guess not, because it's a bit vague, but there is. Interestingly enough, the stage play involves the daughter of Voldemort, and a certain character is absent for the entirety of the sixth book, even though they shoehorn her into the sixth movie for no reason. And that might actually be the point at which, what's her name, was born. So it might have been something Rowling had planned, or at least the basic concept might have been something Rowling had planned. So, who knows? I don't know at this point. I'm sure Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is an excellent stage production, and I plan to see it when it hits Broadway in a couple years. But as a story, not so much.
Honestly, a lot of theater is not great story-wise. It's not really about the plot.
That's why reading Shakespeare is so awful because it's not meant to be read.
Yeah. Oh, that doesn't stop grade school English class from trying.
Quiet.
No, of course not. But
Bad memories.
I think
Yeah,
we all have bad
very
memories
few
like that.
plays are actually meant to be read. Like, the only one that I can think of is The Crucible. That was actually meant to be read rather than performed, and that's just because the author made a whole bunch of snarky stuff about the McCarthyism that was going on at the
So,
time.
it wasn't going to be performed anytime soon. At least not in a widespread way.
And it still is performed, but it's
Well,
not.
it's performed now, but we don't have the same baggage the McCarthyist era did. We're fine looking back on that era and, seeing the Crucible as an epic criticism of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh, man. The Crucible actually was the only stage play I read in school that I enjoyed.
No, I like it a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, there was a whole kerfuffle involving a bug and a teapot and stuff.
The bird changes sizes to adapt to its surroundings.
It's another scene where why didn't they just summon the bug question comes up. I'm pretty sure you can't summon that bug. Alright. Oh yeah, and the Bowtruckle is having this cute disagreement with Newt. Oh man. I like the creatures. They're adorable. I hope we see more of these in the later movies, but
Well, if they're
I
going to
got-
keep on calling them Fantastic Beasts and where to find them, there should be Fantastic
I have
Beasts.
no idea what the next movies are going to be called. At all. Like maybe Newt writes other books with the Fantastic Beasts moniker, but we have
Well, I think after this, he doesn't want anybody going inside his briefcase, so it would be
I
there
am
are no
not Spock.
Fantastic Beasts. Don't ask me where to find them.
Anyway, yeah. We don't get Newt Scamander's whole backstory in this film. We just get some tidbits that set up what we're apparently supposed to find out more about. Apparently, he had a friend in school, what's her name, Lestrange, who was ostracized just about as much as he was for different reasons because the Lestrange family has a really bad reputation. To be fair, that really bad reputation is well earned, if anyone remembers Bellatrix. But yeah. The backstory as I understand it is that Newt Scamander took the heat for something his friend did that involved magical creatures endangering someone's life. So he got expelled from Hogwarts over it. The only person to defend him, to try and argue against the expulsion, was Dumbledore, who was a transfiguration teacher at the time. I'm assuming because Dumbledore is a Legilimens, he knew that Newt was lying about being guilty. So yeah, but Newt got expelled from school because
Man,
of that whole thing.
you're not gonna get any jobs the wizard economy without a wizard degree in these days. Like maybe he can get his wizard GED, but you know.
It's actually quite true. I assume a lot of wizards actually wind up working in the Muggle world, um, which would be a hell of a lot easier because you can just magic your way into having qualifications.
No, they mention the American
Ugh.
school and then don't really do anything about it.
Oh yeah,
They only
Ilvermorny.
ever mention the American school for the Order of the Phoenix is no.
No, no,
That's
they don't. They haven't. They
Goblet of
didn't
Fire.
mention. They didn't mention the American school at all in the book
No,
series. That was
those are other
something that.
schools within, I think, Britain in the Goblet of Fire.
No, the other schools were France and Bulgaria.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Beauxbatons is an academy entirely for. No. That's only in the movies. In the movies, Beauxbatons is a school entirely for women, which is weird. But in the books, there actually are male students. They just aren't highlighted much. And actually, there are female students who go to Durmstrang too. But the movie decided to make that a sausage fest because we needed a gender binary balance, I suppose.
well, I mean, it makes some amount of sense that there would be all boy and all girl schools for wizards.
Yeah, they have those
Except
in
it
they have those
doesn't.
in the real world too. So
Except it doesn't make any sense at all because there's like a handful of magical schools across the world. There's not really room. There's not really a place to have that kind of gender exclusive boarding school, according to the Harry Potter universe.
Then again, what do we know about wizarding schools?
Quite a lot, thanks to Pottermore now, because because there's like 5 or 6 different articles that were written around the time Ilvermorny was introduced. There's a different article for every single one of the big schools in every country, even stuff that hasn't come up like Japan. And Japan is kind of creepy because they have uniform colors, and the uniform color changes if you go dark. So basically, they saddle you with a uniform that will tattle on you if you turn into an evil wizard and start doing dark magic things. I feel like that's a statement on Japanese conformity society. Oh well. Anyway, yeah, this is where the third act really starts. The groundwork of it was set up when Credence had his little Hulk out a little while ago, but now Graves is trying to get him to help him find Modesty because he thinks Modesty is the one who obscurialed out and destroyed half the town. Turns out he was wrong. But he just
yay.
sort of blew his chance with Credence by brushing Credence off and calling him a squib. That's a
Said the S word.
a squib being a magical child who has no magical powers. There's only a couple squibs in the Harry Potter world. Arabella Figg and Argus Filch being those two. But it turns out Credence is very magical indeed, and Modesty has no magic at all. Now, this is something I'm not sure how Credence did. I'm assuming that was just standard accidental magic.
Magic.
Accidental magic that happens like when Aunt Marge got turned into a fucking hot air balloon. Um,
I owe you an apology because I realize I done gooped.
Say I'm sorry.
yeah, Grindelwald's got charisma, but he's a little on the not so smart side. Well, I mean, not so smart, but he's he doesn't seem to have the same kind of intellectual approach that Voldemort did, or that Voldemort was implied to, since we don't see Voldemort in too many scenes in the actual novels. Well,
You're off by just a few inches, Credence.
that's a problem. I mean, how are you gonna hide a dark cloud of evil magic that's just sort of rampaging around the town like a
Just chalk it up to pollution.
pollution? They did say it was atmospheric in the beginning, but that was just because they hadn't directly seen the creature. Like, one person had actually seen it. I like how this plays out. Newt tells Tina to take care of of the case and, stand back. And Newt goes off and she hands it to her sister and tells her basically the same thing and flies off herself. And then she hands it to him and almost goes off, but Jacob convinces her to stay. I actually like the Jacob Queenie romance. Overly it's not overly, played up. It's just a thing that happens along the way. And that's what makes it better than all of the romance in the Harry Potter books combined.
Oh, the romance was always the most cringy part of those books.
Harry
me.
Potter and his dick monster. I mean,
I never cared who Harry had a crush on.
Everyone
Or-
knew it was going to be Ginny in the end, but the only
Everyone knew Ron and Hermione were going to get together, even though that didn't make any sense.
kind of good thing was the Cho Chang stuff, but only because that was doomed to fail, and it failed about as hard as you expected it to.
We all have that first romance, and that's just what it
Yeah,
is, first
yeah.
romance.
I was about as bad with women as Harry was, and when I was his age. So, yeah.
And now look at me now, a dictator. No, I'm kidding.
But like, J.K. Rowling obviously does not know how a hormonal teenage boy actually thinks. So, the whole dick monster thing was kind of. uh,
And to your left, you will see a giant gorilla running around as well.
I like this scene. I mean, it's the only real action scene Tina gets, but it's a pretty good one. It's also short, but it's a very good one. Now, she's essentially facing one of the most powerful dark wizards who's ever lived, so it makes sense that he would block everything. But I like the way Grindelwald fights. He's basically the opposite of Voldemort, who.
So he's using the Force. But yeah, go on, Lewis.
Yeah, he's basically the opposite of Voldemort. Voldemort really flaunted his power. Like, really, really flaunted his power. And that was why, like, the only one who ever stood up to him in a direct confrontation was Dumbledore, because Dumbledore had the fucking Elder Wand. So Dumbledore could, match that power. Not necessarily on all of his own talents, but he was able to, fight on even footing with Voldemort. But by that same token, Voldemort also killed everything that crossed his fucking path. So he wouldn't have run away to pursue his actual objective. And Voldemort had a real attitude problem when it came to not being able to win a fight.
Meanwhile, on Gray's End, he's very manipulative, it seems.
Grindelwald doesn't give a fuck about winning fights. In fact, that's probably why he managed to get the Elder Wand in the first place, because he realized that he didn't need to kill the owner of the Elder Wand to claim ownership.
He just had to
of
win
it.
it.
He just had to steal it without the owner's permission. He needed to disarm them. So he basically figured out what Harry figured out like 50 goddamn years earlier, and Voldemort didn't get it. Which is why Snape ended up dying. And it's also why Voldemort never caught on to the idea that, hey, maybe Snape isn't the owner. So in that sense, Grindelwald is quite a bit smarter than Voldemort. Although Voldemort did actually manage to overthrow a wizarding government and enact his will, so, they're both they're both smart and stupid in different ways, I suppose.
One just has the natural ability to do it better, I guess.
No, Voldemort had major goddamn trust issues, whereas Grindelwald saw the value of working with certain people if they could help him. Grindelwald's objective is also somewhat different. He wanted to cause a war between wizards and muggles in order to, inspire wizards to break away, become independent, and make themselves the dominant force. Whereas Voldemort was just sort of a rabid grudge match. His his philosophy and the philosophy of the Death Eaters was a lot less sympathetic than Grindelwald's. It's kind of like Grindelwald represents the prejudice of a class of society that is still rather fresh out of being oppressed, whereas Voldemort represents the prejudice of a generation much farther down the timeline where that oppression is a distant memory and all that's left is kind of a warped version of the of
Oh, our sense
what
of
of the
superiority.
yeah, a warped sense of superiority. Like wizards have nothing to fear from muggles in the 90s UK. Like not absolutely nothing at all. But the prejudices that lingered just sort of became a sense of pure blood superiority that Voldemort exploited for his own emotional reasons. Whereas Grindelwald had, kind of a legitimate argument to his name, and he gathered people to his side based on that argument. I like the scene where uh, Newt is almost about to get through to Credence, but ugh, in comes Graves
And his little dog too.
like a fucking freight train down the tunnel. No subtlety.
Magic blasts, yeah.
You know, this whole the whole idea Graves had that, getting into a wizarding duel around an Obscurial who might explode again at any second. Not his brightest moment, I have to say. But I guess he was getting desperate, so he was a little more impulsive. But yeah, Newt Scamander can't fight Graves in a head-on fight any better than Tina can. In fact, he does considerably worse.
Unlimited. I mean, he is shooting force lightning.
He's basically using a lightning whip, in fact.
Yeah, it's like it's not
This-
Force Lightning, it's Force Zaps. It's Force Taser.
And these are the people from the newspaper agency. So they're about to break the story that wizards are real.
Stop zapping you.
And now, young Scamander, you will die.
You will die.
These last scenes made Credence a really tragic, horrifying thing.
I done goofed again.
Yeah, he looks like he's about to get stepped on by Godzilla there. In fact, he looks like the guy who was in front of Austin Powers' steamroller.
Stop!
Of course, unlike that guy, Graves can teleport, so... Well, technically it's called apparition. Apparition, rather, not apparition. They're two different words, but they always get mixed up in fan fiction. Oh, dear.
So is the Obscurus just a giant swarm of bees? Because that's
It's
kind of what
a-
it looks like.
It's a massive amorphous mass of parasitic magical energy. So, yeah. And it's also very, very large because Credence has a lot of magical power native to him.
It's built up for many, many years.
So, Graves is going to try and tempt Credence to the dark side again. Newt
Together
and
we can
Tina are
rule the country as father and son.
Well, yeah, basically, Graves Grindelwald thinks that he can use an Obscurus's massive magical power to expose the magical world and force the war he wants. Is my understanding of the whole plan.
Well, he's succeeding
everything
right now,
happened.
essentially, but
Yeah. There's a fan theory that because of Dumbledore's sister and what was said to have happened between them in Book 7, that sparked his interest in Obscurials, Obscuri, whatever.
plural.
This is unfortunately a very logical decision for President Pickery to have made, but the movie also makes it fucking horrifying when it happens.
What, you mean blow him to shit?
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, because the kid didn't do anything wrong. It's not like it's
Well,
under his control.
The kid was out of control. Yeah, it's like in a court of law, he would have been convicted of murder. At least not if the court knew what the fuck was happening. He would have been sent to a mental hospital. You know, under guard, sure, but mental hospital. He would have been ruled insane. So yeah, goodbye, Credence. Man,
It's symbolic.
is it? thought-
Probably.
I thought it was fairly literal. In fact,
Yeah, but the literalism makes it symbolic. Yeah, I'm smart. I can write English paper real good.
anyway, yeah. And this is where Graves's sympathetic argument comes in. But the thing about this is the problem with this is that Colin Farrell's portrayal of Graves is a fuck lot more interesting than Johnny Depp's 3 seconds as Grindelwald.
Well, to be fair, we only get 3 seconds of Johnny Depp.
Yeah, I know. It's just
So-
the creepy whisper just did not grab me half as well as any single scene with Graves. So-
Honestly, Johnny Depp, it's not. He kind of has one mode for acting. Like, he's
mean
got
be
Jack
weird?
Sparrow. Yeah, he's got the Jack Sparrow mode, and that's about it. And
so he's basically Ian Malcolm 2.0.
yeah, so it's like it doesn't always switch to other characters very well, you know?
Well, we'll have to wait and see until the next movie, because honestly, like, it's the same problem that like almost every new Doctor in Doctor Who has had since the modern series started, where they make a brief appearance at the end of the episode where the regeneration happens, and then in the episode following, their character is much better portrayed. Because they actually knew what they were doing by that point, rather than just making a cameo appearance to establish a new Doctor. It's the same kind of thing.
Aren't they out of Doctors? Because I thought that there was only supposed to be
No.
like 13.
No,
something like that.
at the end of the 11th Doctor's run, they made up a reason to have as many Doctors as they damn well fucking please.
Oh, of course they did. Because who wants to end the series, right?
Well, they also had to do that because there was some tomfuckery in the 10th Doctor's run that sort of cut out one of the Doctors in their Doctor limit without actually changing Doctors. I love that. I love that crazy haircut he's got going on.
Wait, so this is Johnny Depp now? They changed
Yeah.
actors for the same character?
Yeah, this is Johnny Depp playing as Grindelwald, whereas Colin Farrell was Grindelwald disguised as
Someone else.
Colin Farrell.
as someone named Graves, who and you only know this if you read Pottermore, but the Graves family is connected to the very first American Aurors, the very first American Dark Wizard catchers. So the Graves family, along with all the other families there, Potter was actually one of them. One of Harry's relatives was among them. The families related to that first handful of Aurors have a lot of prestige in Makusa.
You can't obliviate an entire city. You just aren't trying hard enough.
Also, notice that Newt notices a wisp of the Obscurus actually escaping the crater and doesn't mention it to anyone. There's a hint that Credence may have survived, but he's gonna let him get away without telling Makusa about it. Because, well, they just shot him to shit. Why would he trust them with Credence?
Good point. And as far as we know, we don't know what happened to the real Graves, right?
He's probably dead somewhere.
Yeah, we don't know what happened to the real Graves. We also don't know for sure what method Grindelwald was using to disguise himself, because the haircut being so similar hints that he could have used his wand to change his appearance, because we haven't seen him constantly drinking from a flask or anything, which is what you would expect from someone using Polyjuice Potion. Polyjuice Potion would have required him to keep Graves alive so that he could harvest some hair or something every so often. Would have also required him to, like, drink some potion every hour, on the hour, in order to maintain the disguise. My theory has always been that that Grindelwald used his wand to transform himself very precisely into the likeness of Graves, so the actual Graves is dead. But that's just my theory.
A game theory. I mean,
A
wait,
fan
a movie
theory.
A fan theory.
A fan theory, a film theory, even. Because we do see wand-based transformations in Book 7 as well, and there's a lot of there's a couple magical concepts, including the Bag of Holding and possible wand-based transformation. It would also explain why Newt was able to use the Revelio charm to undo the transformation.
Well, if you can turn into a cat with magic, I don't see why it would be that different to change your likeness into a human. It would just be very difficult to do it that precisely.
It would be difficult, but Grindelwald is one of the few.
They're messing with everyone's minds via the rain, but what about people indoors?
Yeah.
That would be,
I think that's the biggest question.
Yeah, this is kind of poorly explained visually, but it's like the memory venom has already gotten into the tap water too.
That's awfully fast tap water.
Well, this is sort of a time-lapse situation where the sun is rising and hours are passing and MACUSA is going around the entire goddamn city repairing shit, so
That's not how water dilation works. Ask Scarecrow.
it's kind of an ass pull, but they do establish the goddamn shotgun on the mantelpiece beforehand, so meh.
You mean to tell me that no one boiled water in Gotham for the weeks he was pouring that shit in Gotham's water?
A lot of people seem to think that it's the water changing these newspapers, but no, it's the actual wizards passing by.
Man, all of this fake news. Wizards changes.
I like the headline that they replace it with. It's something about how it was a boring day.
And nothing really happened that day.
I think that was actually a British broadcast once. They basically just said that nothing happened this day and just started playing music.
Oh man.
Man, I would kill to have a news broadcast like that one of these days. Just once.
Not for another 3.5 years.
Not until someone bans Trump from Twitter. Because as long as he's there, there's always going to be something to broadcast.
Yeah.
And they all lived happily ever after, because it's not like these guys still committed crimes or anything.
Well, the president of MACUSA kind of has to accept that this whole situation could not have been fixed without Newt. And they just captured Grindelwald, which puts them in a really ingratiating place with the rest of Interpol. So she's just like, okay, obliviate the muggle, and, well, get that box of monsters out of my country.
Okay, so you don't want this one guy who, according to everyone else, would be speaking utter nonsense and thus wouldn't believe him.
Well, basically, it's the law, and
oh, we all
President
know
Pickering is just like-
the law doesn't matter if you try hard enough.
yeah. It's just that, Pickery has to stick to her guns on that point, but she's kind of sympathetic about it. And I think this might be the impetus toward that law changing in the future.
Or you could just say, you could say give the order and say obliviate, but not actually do it, and he can just pretend to be oblivious.
That would be funny, but Jacob accepts this in stride. Just, steps into the rain and lets his memories fade away. But this won't be the last we're seeing of Jacob. They make it pretty clear that they're establishing his return. And the next movie is going to take place, like, years and years later, probably. So, by then the law might have changed, and Queenie would probably have told him of all the memories he lost.
Can you regain memories you lose magically?
I'm not sure. It's never actually confirmed. I think, yeah, it can. Yeah, actually, no, that's a plot point in Book 4, rather. Although in Book 4, they were memories that were recovered through intense torture through the Cruciatus Curse. I don't necessarily know if it could be done intentionally, but that was just something that that Voldemort found out by fucking accident because Wormtail happened to bring him the specific person who knew it.
Again, the president's not around. You can just say you did it.
Yeah, true. But Jacob doesn't want to rock the boat. I like how accepting he is of it. It's a nice character moment.
One thing I do appreciate is that they involved a not magic person in the movie to begin with, because that's something that they never bring up in anything Harry Potter.
Someone who isn't the Dursleys.
Yeah, basically.
Well, even then, the Dursleys knew they just weren't magical.
There are some, like Ted Tonks makes a brief appearance, and he's Nymphadora Tonks' father, and he's non-magic, I believe. But yeah. It's just fun to see one of them in, main character group role. It allows for some interesting things that you couldn't have done with just 3 wizards and witches.
I know that his facial expression just looks like he's like he forgot to close his mouth while eating or something.
Oh yeah. He just man, what must the people be thinking about this guy who's standing there looking like he's kissing an invisible woman?
Oh, there goes the fat man eating the invisible cake again.
Man, I look like a goddamn jackass out here.
The real question is why this magic memory wiping rain can wipe out specific memories. There's a lot of, if you think about it too much, there's a lot of mental and psychological problems that could arise from this method.
Not when magic's involved.
Yeah, they needed a quick way to solve the problem at the end of the movie. So, it's not the best written climax in Harry Potter history, but some of the movie's parts, though, when you consider the whole thing, it's a really good film. I feel like this would have been better explained as a novel, though.
Oh, he saw him.
Yeah, Newt walked past and left a case behind. It's a heavy case. I wonder what's in it. Huh. The silver eggs. Remember at the beginning how Jacob was at the bank asking for a loan to start up a bakery, and he couldn't get a loan because of collateral, even though he was a veteran? Oh yeah, Jacob is a war veteran, so he does have a serious side to his backstory, too.
It's a World War I veteran, too, so that means it's like one of those morally ambiguous wars, not like World War II where, it's like...
There was bad guys and stuff.
I'll eat the baddies.
Yeah.
His muffins and croissants represent his sins.
So,
he sees the jelly donut, the red jelly.
John, source your... John, where's your source? You need to come up with some citations here. All right.
And that can't be Wikipedia.
So Newt couldn't associate with Jacob legally anymore, but to give him a good farewell, he left him a basket of silver alchemy eggs and told him to use them as collateral for his bakery. So yeah, it's a nice goodbye. And I do like the chemistry between Newt and Tina. It's kind of hard to pull off a genuine romance that is predetermined. Like, you already know these two are going to marry, or at least you do if you
read the book.
If you know the material well. So.
Oh, I dig the Hufflepuff scarf.
Yeah.
He would.
Yeah,
this
like
guy would be a Hufflepuff.
Well,
he was a Hufflepuff.
The fuck is that supposed to mean, racist?
Well,
he was a Hufflepuff.
Well, it's nice to see main characters that aren't part of the obligatory good guy group.
Yeah.
We all know that kids only come in 4 categories. All right, brave, smart, evil, and miscellaneous.
Yeah, I have to feel bad for the genuinely good Slytherin kids because they're just assumed to be evil, I guess.
Yeah, oh god, that concept is butchered to hell and gone in fan fiction. If I have to read one more Gary Stu Harry Potter as a Slytherin fan fiction, I'm going to strangle a cat, probably McGonagall,
with the Hufflepuff scarf.
But yeah, Newt is officially a Hufflepuff.
Nobody likes Hufflepuff. It's like
Fuck you.
people don't like Hufflepuff to the point where people start liking Hufflepuff just to be contrary. Yeah, I said
Hufflepuff actually was the only house in Hogwarts that Rowling couldn't figure out an excuse for Harry to visit their common room at some point. Like, she had their common room figured out. There's a description of it up on Pottermore, but she never managed to work it into the story.
What is it like a?
That's
what,
how
what is it?
unimportant.
What is it? What is it like a? Does it have like a moon bounce in there? Just like other miscellaneous
Ball pit?
random stuff.
Ball pit?
Yeah, ball pit.
Actually, I think it's a pretty normal common room, all things
How
considered.
dull. Just like Hufflepuff.
Like, I think it would be like just a stereotypical college dorm. Like, they'd have a few beers in there, like a PlayStation, GoldenEye, if this is the 90s,
what's
definitely.
Ravenclaw?
Ravenclaw's the goth kids. Slytherin's either, if you're not evil in Slytherin, that's probably where all the nerds live. And then Gryffindor are the jocks who think they're way better than they actually are.
And had the teachers on their side for everything.
Man, you're fucking describing every bad fan fiction ever
But
to me.
no, I still hate that part of the first book slash movie where Dumbledore just gives them more points at the end just so they can win.
Yeah, 'cause he's
that was kind of dickish.
Yeah,
It
Slytherin
really
earned
did.
it, pretty much.
Yeah.
Doesn't Gryffindor win every House Cup,
Yeah.
pretty much, up until,
When
like,
when Harry's there just because.
Hey,
Main
look
character.
at that. Jacob subconsciously remembers all the magical creatures from his adventure and has created delicious baked confections in their likeness.
That seems like an incredibly difficult and inefficient way to cook. 3 cents for... Oh, man, I really wish I lived back in
Well,
the...
you know,
in the
he
20s.
he's running an independent bakery in a time when, you know, mass manufacturing was on the rise. So his shop having a gimmick is actually a very good thing for his business at this point. Because you're not going to get those specific things out of a factory. That was brought up back when he was asking for a loan.
Yeah, it's like, why? Who cares about you making donuts when a factory can make 100 of them in a minute?
He can sort of remember. He can't entirely remember, but he sort of remembers. And that's how we know Jacob is going to be back for future movies.
Also, the actor's probably contracted for at least 3. So...
Because Warner Brothers is not going to let go of that money train.
Yeah. Well, they already know 5 movies is going to be the thing, so they probably got all the major players committed for
In
5
the
movies.
same way, there's going to be 6 more Power Rangers movies.
Oh yeah, but you know, Power Rangers being kind of a risk in this day and age is one thing, but Harry Potter was a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, you couldn't go anywhere in the 2000s without people obsessing over Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So, like, especially considering that it was like the world's easiest Halloween costume too.
It got so goddamn popular around the time Book 4 was coming out that people were actually importing books 1 and 2, so they had to rush out books 1 through 3 right before the book 4 came out.
Yeah, it's like it's like the Pokemon hype train ended, and then to pick it up, Harry Potter came in like almost immediately after.
Yeah.
Too. It's
Yeah, but Harry Potter did more than just, you know, enthrall a bunch of kids. It actually changed the landscape of literature publishing irrevocably.
basically.
The entire children's book and young adult fiction industry as it exists today exists because of Harry Potter.
Yeah, because like back before Harry Potter, books like Animorphs or like if you're for
Goosebumps.
girls like Pony Goosebumps, Babysitter's Club, those books were like churned out like a factory. Like one would come out every month, kind of like a comic book actually. Whereas
Yeah.
after Harry Potter, they realized that kids would wait for a bigger product like every 6 months. And so then you started getting things like Series of Unfortunate Events and like a whole spew of like I don't think young adult fiction as it is right now wouldn't exist without Harry Potter. So
His Dark Materials, you had a Series of Unfortunate Events, Artemis Fowl,
Aragon.
yeah.
Yeah, Aragon.
Yeah,
A
so
whole
like,
bunch of stuff.
yeah, so without like I mean, you know, I also appreciate it because it got kids to read too, which is an important thing. Like I know that we're all about video games here on BrainScratch, but like read a book, you dumb kids.
Well, here's
yeah.
the thing: they complain about kids not reading, but it's like, but schools only make you read the crap that no one wants to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, not watch,
like,
read.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
whenever like you were in.
It's like maybe I'd be more inclined to read Shakespeare if you didn't force it down my throat when I didn't want to.
It's like whenever you were in school and they did okay, you have to read any book you want and do a presentation on it. Like, how many Harry Potters did you guys see during those kinds of?
I was the dork who did some Star Wars expanded universe stuff.
The I don't remember any of the book reports I did, but I do remember that in 5th or 6th grade or so, my English teacher was lending out her own personal copies of the first 3 Harry Potter books, and that was what turned me into a reader. I did not like reading before that. I explicitly remember being very reluctant to accept the first book when my teacher kind of slightly pressured me to try
I
it.
remember reading the first book and putting it down a few times just because the first chapter is so damn slow.
Oh, okay. So my mom would read the first chapter to me and my sister, and I would always forget what happened. So she would have to read it again over and over, and this happened like 5 times. And my sister got really, really sick of it, and I don't know how many of the books she's even read because of
Man.
of that. So I was kind of
I
a dick.
I don't know what people's problem with that first chapter is. I love the first chapter of the first book.
It was only until the 5th book where I hit my first real snag, because after I read the first one, I was like, ugh.
Yeah,
I was a fucking alcoholic for the goddamn book.
it's a tiring book to read, but I marathoned Order of the Phoenix when I got my hands on it the same way I am currently marathoning Persona 5, and that's when I know I really like something, when I just can't stop.
Yeah, that's 100% true. It's kind of weird when you're playing a book when you're reading a book too, because as you're reading it, you know just how close you are getting to the end,
Yeah.
and it's a weird feeling too. So
Yeah, it is. I like one of my clearest childhood memories is I was at a pool party at a relative's house, a relative of my stepfather. They have a big old outdoor pool. I spent the whole time at a table reading Order of the Phoenix instead of swimming. I couldn't stop myself.
at least you are outside, fresh air.
Well, yeah, reading outside is a really, really relaxing thing, and it's one of the reasons that I'm really glad I finally got a Kindle Paperwhite. But
Yeah. I now that it's getting nice out, I should do that more, but it's like my hair blows over the place and I'd have to tie it up, and that takes like work, man. So
yeah, for that I just wear a hat.
yeah. Actually, I have so much hair, a lot of hats don't fit. So I'll have to figure something out. But
Maybe get yourself a cool gangsta headband.
I can pull off cool gangsta, yo. No, I
Listen,
can't.
don't ever say the word gangsta ever again.
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir.
Say some gangsters, but
that
dissing
goes
on
for
one
both
of
of
your
you.
plackers.
3 of you, stop.
Oh man, I really like this movie. It's a good new direction for the franchise to go in, and I'd be a lot more cynical about it, to be honest. Like, I'd be a lot more cynical about there being more Harry Potter stuff if that was all Rowling was doing. But she is actually writing other books. Like, she's got like 4 original.
I think she had to.
novels out
I
that
think.
aren't
I think she had to
related.
write something under a different name just so people would actually
She-
read it.
She did write something under a different name, and it took about like half a year for people to realize, hey, this is Rowling writing again. She's still writing under that name. It's the Cormoran Strike Detective series.
Yeah, but she specifically did it just
but-
so people wouldn't assume it should be more Harry Potter stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
Because Casual Vacancy, which I've heard is actually a pretty good book, got a lot of flack for being very, very different from Harry Potter.
Well, after you write 7 books of the same kind of stuff, you're gonna want to write something very, very different. You know?
It's more like authors tend to get typecast by their readers into specific genres.
Stephen King,
so that
anyone?
Yeah, so you get Stephen King. He writes a lot of horror, but he also writes other stuff too. A lot of other stuff. And it took a while for him to really get well known enough that he could branch off without people giving him trouble over it.
Yeah. I did. I
heard
enjoyed this more than I thought I would.
I hear he's writing a biography about. Oh crap! Who is it? Benjamin Franklin.
Huh.
No.
Interesting.
That's a Simpsons reference.
Well, the thing about Stephen King, though, is that he's a great writer no matter what he's writing. Like, even if the story has problems, and believe me, a lot of his stories do, his actual writing is just great to read.
Who else is going to go see it later this year?
I might.
I haven't even read the book yet, to be honest. His backlog is the size of the iceberg that sank the Titanic.
No, Stephen King has written enough to like fill an entire library.
Stephen
just
King
with his-
age artwork.
Stephen King is one of those anomalies of the writing world where the writing just sort of flows out, and it's like a waterfall of literature.
All the marijuana probably helped back in the day.
I'm thinking. I think the only one who I can think of that is written about as much as Isaac Asimov, who's written like an obnoxious amount of stuff. So yeah, but I actually, in regards to the movie, I liked it more than I thought I did. I think it's the not being in Hogwarts. I think helps a lot. Like,
Yeah.
you've done as much as you can in that setting.
Yeah.
So
Being able to branch out and see the wider wizarding world. I mean, the 7 books hinted so much at stuff that was going on, and you learned just enough about it to get a sense of scope. But actually going out into that world and seeing it firsthand is a whole nother experience, and it's a good one. And that one that really makes this movie go. I love Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
All right, so I guess tune in now that the credits are all over. Before we go into any more Potter tangents, which I'm sure we will, and future movie commentaries for Lewis's picks, I guess we'll see you all next week when we go into our next movie.
woo
Woo woo.
woo 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 woo.
Yeah.